Viola Liuzzo was a name that would soon echo in the hearts of many, though she never could have imagined how her life would end. In the deep, tense South of 1965, Viola, a 39-year-old mother of 5 from Detroit, was not just another bystander. She was a fighter for equality, for justice, and for the freedom of every American, no matter their race or color. On March 25, 1965, Viola was on a mission that many had taken before her, a mission that would ultimately cost her life, but not her legacy. Viola had been in Selma, Alabama, the site of one of the most pivotal moments in the civil rights movement. It was the culmination of the Voting Rights March, where thousands of Black and white Americans came together to demand equal voting rights for African Americans. Viola, who had been moved by the images of peaceful protesters beaten by police just days before, drove down from Michigan to join the movement. She wasn't simply observing from the sidelines. She was part of it, standing in solidarity with those who had fought for years to achieve equality. But she could not have foreseen that her drive home would turn into a nightmare. After the march, Viola was driving back to Montgomery, accompanied by Leroy Moton, a young African-American man who had been a participant in the march. They were miles away from the scene of the protests when the violence they had been protesting against came barreling toward them. Unbeknownst to Viola, she had become a target. Her white skin, her activism, and her courage had made her a symbol of everything the violent, segregationist forces feared. In the shadows of Selma, members of the Ku Klux Klan lay in wait. Without warning, 3 Klan members, Collie Leroy Wilkins, Eugene Thomas, and Billy Joe Harris, pulled up beside Viola's car on U.S. Highway 80. They opened fire, raining bullets into her car. Viola was struck, the impact tearing into her face. Leroy Moton, sitting beside her, miraculously ducked low in time to avoid the bullets. The car veered off the road, crashing into the ditch, but Viola's body lay lifeless at the wheel. Viola, a mother who had left behind 5 children, had been murdered because of her support for civil rights. Her death wasn't just another senseless act of violence. It was an attack on everything she stood for. It was a brutal, violent end for a woman who had dared to stand in the gap for justice. She had gone to Selma to fight for others' right to vote, but she had unknowingly sacrificed herself in that fight. The world was shaken by her death, and yet it was only the beginning of the shocking revelations that would follow. The Klan members responsible for Viola's death weren't strangers to the law. They were deeply embedded in the community. The investigation into her murder revealed a stunning truth. Collie Leroy Wilkins, one of the killers, was actually an FBI informant. This revelation stunned the nation and cast a dark shadow over the FBI's role in the case. How could an informant, one who was supposed to be working with the government, be involved in such a violent act? The implications were clear. The system that was supposed to protect civil rights was, in many ways, complicit in the very violence it was meant to stop. As the investigation unfolded, the FBI found it difficult to gather sufficient evidence against the men who had taken Viola's life. Despite the initial silence, the public outcry forced the hands of the authorities. The pressure became too much to ignore, and soon, Viola's murder became a symbol of how far the country still had to go to achieve real justice. The story was no longer just about a tragic murder. It was about the power of the movement she had died for and the refusal to let her death be swept under the rug. In a twist of fate, the pressure mounted, and Viola's murderers were eventually caught and convicted. Collie Leroy Wilkins, Eugene Thomas, and Billy Joe Harris were arrested, tried, and convicted of her murder. But what was even more remarkable was the legacy Viola left behind. Her death catalyzed a shift in the civil rights movement, one that gave momentum to the push for the Voting Rights Act, which would be signed into law later that year. Viola's death, though brutal and tragic, became the fuel that powered the march for justice forward. The irony was not lost on anyone. Viola, a white mother from Detroit, had become a martyr for a cause she believed in, something that many had fought for, but her sacrifice would propel the nation toward change. She was not just fighting for Black Americans. She was fighting for all Americans. Her life, her death, and the legacy she left behind would become a crucial part of the narrative of the civil rights movement. In the years following her death, Viola's children would grow up in the shadow of her sacrifice. Tony, her son, would later become a vocal advocate for civil rights, sharing his mother's story and continuing her fight. Viola's other children, too, would carry her legacy with them, teaching others about the power of love, courage, and the importance of standing up for what is right. They had lost a mother, but they had inherited her unyielding spirit. Despite the injustices and the violence that marred her life, Viola's story became one of ultimate triumph. Her death was not in vain. Her legacy became a beacon of hope for those who still believed in the power of justice, equality, and the sanctity of life. The civil rights movement would continue to grow, gaining momentum and gaining victories in the years to come. Viola's death wasn't just a moment in history. It was a lesson in how far we must go to ensure that justice is served. It taught us that even in the darkest times, standing up for what is right is never in vain. Justice may be delayed, but it will always find its way, even through the most brutal of trials. Viola Liuzzo's story reminds us of the power of one life, one sacrifice, to change the course of history. Her death sparked the flame that would burn brighter in the hearts of those who believed in equality. And in the end, justice was served, not just in the courts, but in the hearts of millions who carried her legacy forward. What are your thoughts on Viola Liuzzo's legacy and the tragic events that unfolded that night? Do you think her death led to the change we see today? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you believe in the power of justice and equality, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with those who need to hear her story.